an ESPN article by our guy Adam Teicher. He spoke with Mahomes and Andy Reid about the kind of trust level that this kind of new trust level that Andy and Mahomes have kind of come to this offseason. And the biggest thing came when Andy kind of allowed Mahomes to kind of lead these offseason workouts for the pass catchers down in Texas, as we mentioned earlier on in the offseason. And Mahomes said on it, quote, "I thought it was cool because when you're in the building, you see each other, but you're still with different coaches. You have certain meetings together. You have certain meetings you don't have together. And getting down there and being able to be with those guys at all times, talk through how I see routes, and then them going through virtual meetings and listening to how coaches explain routes. It helped to get a better understanding of each other. That was the biggest thing, him trusting us to get our workouts in, get our bodies right, run the routes, get a head start." When you hear these things, this is what you talked about. This is why you said, like, that when this whole thing was happening, you were like, this is getting these guys closer, and this, like, it has everything to do to get these guys and have that chemistry. Now, when you see when you hear Patrick's on this whole thing and how Andy's trusting him to do this, what was your kind of takeaway from hearing Pat and Andy kind of come to this new trust level in year 5?
I mean, to me, it just seems like kind of the natural order of things, to be honest with you. If this is a guy that you paid a boatload of money to, $500 million, then you shouldn't have any concerns about putting this guy in the position of a leader. I mean, that's who he is. And so I think Andy understands that, this is Patrick Mahomes. We trust him emphatically. And for him to come down and to convey what we want offensively is nothing that we should really concern ourselves with. He's going to be able to do it. Matter of fact, he'll probably be able to do it in a way with his players that's better than the coaches. And so them being on the same page, because the players are the ones who's going to be playing, right? As coaches, we could draw whatever up. We could draw it up, make it look pretty and make it look like this. But it's like, hey, you know what? Get to know this guy, the angles about certain things, and the speed of how he runs and how he's catching the routes. I think you put that in his hands because they're going to be the guys that's being engaged out there on the football field. So Andy understands this. I mean, shoot, he's played the game. He understands, like, look, there's some things we can do as coaches, but the rapport that y'all need to build as players, that's the significant part. And so to me, that's a natural order of things, to be honest with you. I think Patrick knows it and would tell him, like, hey, look, this sounds good, coach, but what if we do it this way? And Skyy, he runs it this way, and MVS runs it this way, and Juju kind of runs this route. They're better at it this way than this skill set. He'll have a better feel of those things. And so he's a coach in the meetings. He is. And he's just an extension of the head coach. And so, like I said, man, they trust Patrick without a doubt. And so I don't think it's absconding the responsibility. It's just saying, hey, this guy I trust without a doubt is an extension about my mind and what we want to do and be successful on the football field.
Hmm. Now, as a former pass catcher in the league, when Mahomes is talking about, in the quote, he said, how I see routes, because, like, it's one thing to hear from your coach. He said it. I guess the thing was hearing the coaches talk to the receivers about to how they describe the routes, but then also him saying, I get to tell them how I see routes. How important is that, especially for some of these young guys and even older guys too, like Josh Gordon, who we talked about, he needs to get that rapport with Patrick Mahomes. And, he may have had the playbook down last year, but he didn't have the rapport down with him so much, right? How important is that for him to tell these guys how he sees route and outside of what the coaches or how the coaches are explaining them? Because I think that's more important, right? With how the quarterback's seeing the routes.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's his perspective. And so when the ball's coming out of his hands, he's talking about, like, look, as the defender, it could be leveraging you on either side. This is where I want you to stop in the window. This is what I want you to do on this route. And so he's giving them his perspective about what he's seeing out there on the football field. And so when you give them that wealth of knowledge to these young guys, they know what he's expecting because the ball's coming out of his hand. Andy's not throwing the football. Bieniemy's not throwing the football. Nagy, he ain't throwing the football. Patrick is going to be one throwing the ball. So this is the guy I need to speak to. Now, the other guys, like I said, the coaches, they could draw up any route they want to. And hey, we run it up here. It's 10 yards or 15 yards. This is what we expect out of you. Patrick's like, yeah, but this, when I see you come out of your break, I want you to kind of throttle down in this area right here, right? Because they kind of end up running over into this zone, or this is how this guy plays. But at least when I'm seeing you run and opening up your hips, I know you're running full speed. And so I'll put the ball out in front of you. So expect it out there, or, you know, let it be low. And so Patrick, who has an array of passes, which is crazy just to even think of and saying something like that, right? He wants them to understand, like, okay, expect the ball from here over here. You may not see me looking at you throwing the football, but if I'm looking at this and I'm giving a shoulder, imagine the ball is going to be on a rope right here, or I might loft it. All those things are important, especially, like I said, from the quarterback standpoint, how he's thinking that he's viewing it. And so I would always go to the quarterback, a trainer, like, hey, man, what do you think about this on this, you know, corner route or this out route on this leverage? You know, should I sit down in the window? You know, it's like, oh, yeah, well, you know, if you kind of settle right there, like right at the guard or the tackle, or extend it even further, like that's where you want to be. You want to hear and have that conversation. Because if you're not having that conversation and you just run things out there, well, it's just robots. And it never works that way in football. It just doesn't. I remember I heard this a while back. They said the hardest defense to defend is guys that you're not expecting to be there. And there's guys that might get it wrong who might just blow the play, but they're in the right place, right? Because you're not expecting them to be there. Like you could draw things up to be right where you want them to be. It looks good on paper, right? It does. But a guy who's intuitive into his knowledge, or maybe like he's lost in the play, he might just be somewhere he ain't supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's where you see like some of the interceptions happen. It's like, man, coach, I wouldn't expect him to be there. Like, why was he even doing that? It was a good, I'll tell you what, it was a great conversation. You probably seen it too, when Ed Reid was talking about Peyton Manning and how he intercepted the ball, right? He was like, you know, I did like weeks of studying about Peyton and understanding. And Peyton was like, I know what Ed was thinking. I know how he thinks and what he was doing. And so Ed was like, I knew he was going to be studying me, but as soon as I opened my hips, I knew he was reading that. And immediately he'd make another read. Well, I took off and opened up and came back the other way. And so you can see it's like this chess game that's going on. Mm-hmm. And so that perspective of like saying like, hey, look, this is where I'm going to be. This is what I'm expecting. But also, too, you need to realize that I have another trick in my bag that other guys might not be thinking, or the coaches might not be thinking the same way I'm on the same page with you. So that's good, man. It's glorious. It's good.
Yeah, you would think it's like most casual fans will think Mahomes is gone to 4 straight AFC Championship games, and it's like, well, he's already reached that trust from Andy. But it's like, it's funny because he's going to year 5 as a starter, and like they're still finding it. Andy's still slowly giving him the keys to be. They have that overall trust to let him kind of be the coach down there for a little bit of the all season. So it's like. It's funny where it's still a work in progress. Patrick even knows he's not reached the pinnacle yet. And I think Andy's still like, he's still a young quarterback in his eyes, but he's slowly giving him that, like, kind of letting him do his thing with the pass catchers. And I think that's pretty cool. And that we still have a quarterback who's at the top of this game, number 1 in the league. Bar none, I think the top quarterback in the league. Yeah. But he's still kind of learning and getting his bearings. And I think it's pretty cool to see that the grooming of Patrick.
Well, this is Patrick's offense. I mean, that's what it is. To be honest with you, everything's geared toward him, and that's how he goes. The rest of the offense is going to go. Period. That's just it. Offense is going straight through him. Nobody else. And so, when you have a guy that you're, like I said, you trust without a doubt, you're putting him out there and say, "Hey, look, man, you take it over. This is your offense. You tell me what your expectations are." We'll put the game plan together and we'll talk about and discuss these things. But what you expect out of the guys, you got to convey that to them. You got to let them know that and communicate it with them. And I know Patrick's going to do it, man. He's going to do it.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. You got the rapport with the receivers. Doing this camp in Texas. And it's like, it makes it easy for guys, maybe young guys who maybe kind of like intimidated by Patrick. I'm sure there's guys who are NFL who are intimidated by other players, right? But like you're intimidated by his prowess, but you also have this kind of open communication now. It's like, we did that whole like month together in Texas. We're kind of like we're friends now, and you can tell me stuff, I can tell you stuff, and like we're kind of be this communication where that's kind of there now for guys who may not, may have been kind of nervous to go up to Patrick and ask him about certain things, but that's there now.
It is. And it's like, you know your role. And so, but also too, it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. I'm an NFL player as well. If I could get where I'm comfortable with this guy, yeah, absolutely. I can kind of relax. Now your shoulders ain't as tense and you're worried about making a drop and a play. And, what is he going to say about me? I don't know. But now you start doing those things and sit back and, I don't know, eat some food. Maybe have a beer or something with a guy and hey, get close and just talk and become buddies and friends. And this is family. You got a common goal. When you have common goals and working together to obtain those goals, hey, this is the best way of going about doing it.
Yeah. Hey, and a lot of Chief fans will say that the guy who just retired, Garrett Deer, the receiver who was on our team for the last 4 years, he was only on the team. He kind of prolonged his stay on the team because he was really close to Patrick as a buddy. And hey, and who knows, maybe Patrick did lobby for him to stay on the team and practice squad and all that stuff, try to keep his buddy around as long as possible. But then this year when we get a bolster that wide receiver room, he ends up retiring from football. So
yeah, shoot, right. Hey, that's good coverage right there, right? Shoot, you got friends with Patrick. I got his bag. I'll make sure. Hey, Patrick's like, oh no, we're doing this together. So,
oh man, that guy was lucky for the last 4 years to be just Patrick's. Whatever he was doing for Patrick to keep him around.
Hey man, hats off to him. You know what I mean? Hey, he was on the NFL team, so he has skill set too, right? So
100%. Hi everybody, thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get podcasts.